This is Noma Dimitri in the Tuileries Gardens in Paris, France, in December, continuing the walk that we started along the bridge across the river. This is perhaps one of the most important gardens in the world. It is on an axe along the river Seine, which crosses Paris, and the banks of the river are on that side, and the main axe of the garden actually is parallel to the river. At the end of this particular garden, right over here, the building that you see over there, is the famous Louvre, the Louvre Museum, with one of the world's finest, with some of the world's most important treasures. On the other side, if I stand up, you will see it, hangs a carousel, a little bit of a pathetic intervention, modern intervention at such a beautiful historic place. And I am actually seated in a very, very civilized way. The French have supplied not just benches for this garden, but actual chairs, this lovely kind of green movable chairs, so you can kind of drag the chair in front of the pond and take a look, make your own place, like so many people around me. You can see on both sides, here and here. It's a very large kind of circular pond. They're sitting, pulling their chairs, facing the sun how they like, the weak winter sun. The garden is a formal French style garden. That means it has axes and shapes. I'm on an area now called the octagon, 8 corners, and the soil where I'm stepping on is actually not tiled. This is not traditional tiling in French gardens. It is actually sand and gravel, what is on the floor, and that permits actually the water to go down and enrich the roots of the large trees that are here. And speaking of the trees are old. Many of them were planted, most of them were planted in the 19th century, but many of them are very large, like this plane tree that you see over here. So the roots of the trees extend underneath the ground where we're walking. And this is a bit of a problem, because this garden, believe it or not, has 14 million visitors per year. 14 million people pass through this expanse every year. What happens, unfortunately, with all these feet stepping on this ground, the soil gets compacted. And the more compacted it gets, the less the water is able to enter the ground, and the less it is able to irrigate the roots of these wonderful trees, which many of them are in trouble, and of course the French are taking serious measures to protect them. From this part of the garden, one more thing. The garden is studded, I should say, not peppered at all, by statuary. As you can see all through this particular square here, right over here, for example, all through around this garden, there are statues. Now, these statues at times are of very important people. For example, this one. This is a very important people. This is a person. This is a statue of Julius Caesar. He's holding some kind of scepter and some kind of shield, and you can see on his head he has the traditional laurel winner's crown, wreath. Not all of the sculptures are of known people. Some of them are of French kings, of course, who want to leave their mark on the park they have paid for. And some of them are figures from ancient Greek mythology. And some of them are just kind of pretty bodies with nice body features for the enjoyment of the visitors to the park. The last thing about this part of the park, this is a French formal garden, so plants are placed in shapes and rows. There's no randomness here. So when you look at this particular part, you're seeing a perfectly straight, perfectly geometric passage. Everything is done by the millimeter in the traditional French garden, and the same for here. Again, the same thing. There are lines everywhere in this type of garden, and the tops of the trees are, as you can see here right now, they are trimmed very, very specifically to create shapes that are not natural shapes. They are man-made shapes, squares, cylinders, circles, what have you. That is the nature of a typical French garden. I will leave you now until the next stop, Noma Dimitri, a stroll in Paris in December, while the world leaders are debating global warming and trying to save the planet.